All right, so we are live and we are going to be talking about how you can improve your ad campaigns so you can grow your sales, have better ad costs, and not just keep donating more money to the Amazon fund. If that's really a thing. So anyway, it can feel like that sometimes. So I'm super excited to be joined by Chris Rawlings here. So Chris, thank you for joining us first off and foremost.
Yes, dude, I am stoked to be back. I've done one of these before. I had a blast. And I just love hanging out with you, Kevin. Every time we hang out, it's fun.
Same here.
You just make it fun.
I try to. So, all right. So we're going to be answering your questions about PPC, and I'm excited that we have Chris here because Chris has the answers to your conundrums and questions that you have. But first off, is this thing on? And I do this in almost every live stream. People probably think it's a ploy, but literally I have some issue with technology. Maybe it's because I'm a Gen Xer and Gen Xers are like okay at technology. But instead of dating myself, I'm going to ask the question. Folks, if you don't mind, put in the chat, yes, I can hear you, or give the thumbs up or something. And just be forewarned, I might be rewarding participation. So yes, Kevin, I can hear you is probably a good thing. And if nobody responds, then that's probably a bad thing, although there is a little bit of a delay. So looks like one of my, I think he's kind of on the fence there of millennial versus Gen X, and that is John Aspinall. So John, thank you for joining us and joining here. So looks like John Hannon says, yes, he can hear. Denota Da Silva says, yes, I can hear you. Bhavana says, can hear you. So very good. So John, looks like you were the first person to ease me of my fears. So email Kevin at myamazonguy.com and I'll give you free access to the Mag School PPC course, which is $100 value. But just yours free only because you just answered a question and made me feel better about what we're doing here. So
pretty easy question too.
I try to make it very simple. So, but the person who's going to be in the hot seat asking the hard questions is going to be Chris. And apparently he brought along his fan club. So Muhammad Abdullah says, huge fan of Chris. Barry KDP says, anytime Chris is live, I know he's about to give us tons of value. Bhavana Ahuja, which if I butchered your name, I apologize. Second that. Thanks, Chris.
Nice.
Bhavana also said it can hear. And then Brian B says, Hippie Mogul LFG.
Yes.
So Hippie Mogul that's your Instagram handle. So if you're not following Chris on Instagram, I want you to pull out your phone right now. I'll pause for a second for you to do this. Go to the Instagram app and look up. Is it literally spelled at Hippie Mogul?
Hippie Mogul, HIPPIE Mogul.
Oh, so it's HIPPIE, not Y. So IE Mogul, one word with an @ symbol in the front end. And make sure that you are following Chris because you're going to want to, because Chris has lots of good answers here. So as Leon says, he's the man, enough said. And he didn't just say it like in lowercase or proper case. He said it in all caps. He brought the house down
to the mountaintop.
Yes. So in addition to people needing to follow you on Instagram, you have something coming up here. Is that correct?
Yes. Yeah, we have the Profitable PPC Challenge, which is the event that we do twice a year. It's live. It's super intense, in-depth, like direct mentorship, 5 days of intense, like $10,000 mastermind value for $47 for 5 days. It's really intense. It's coming up on April 22nd. I'm so excited about it.
I'm excited for it too. And I'm excited for folks to sign up. You can go to myamazonguy.com/challenge. That will forward you to a page where you can sign up for Chris's challenge. In full disclosure, this is an affiliate link, but we're not doing this for the money. We're doing this because I believe in what Chris is offering here. So Chris is going to offer us a lot of value for free today. And if you want to thank him for that, that is one way you could do it by going to myamazonguy.com/challenge. Now, here's what's going to happen here, folks. People are going to ask Chris some questions. As people ask more questions, more people come in and join us live. And then all of a sudden, more people start asking questions at the end. So if you've ever been in school, at any point in your life, you know how this works. The teacher says, does anyone have any questions? And what does everybody do? They sit there. I don't have any questions. And then once people start asking questions, ooh, I have a question. I'm going
Too late. Class is canceled.
Class is canceled. Class is canceled. So we can't let class be canceled. You got to ask some questions, and just know we will have a hard stop at the top of the hour at 1 o'clock. I want to be respectful of Chris's time. So in order to do that, you got to start asking your questions. So if you decide I'm going to jump in off the sideline at 12:50, you are less likely to get your question answered than if you jump in now. So the lines are open, as the talk radio hosts used to say. So with that, John Aspinall says the graphic for the challenge is epic. Looks like Chris is a Fortnite character.
Nice.
So show them behind you what they can't see right now, Chris.
Yeah, I mean, I have the sword of Eldaron, the sword reforged. You know, it's not a huge deal, but you know, it could save all of Middle Earth. That's not messing around.
That looks like when you go to Disney World and you try to like pull the sword and the stone out.
Yeah,
and nobody ever seems to.
It's got
that looks like it. Wow. I want to make sure your microphone's still working after that. So good deal. All right. So Yan Chen says, I did that $47 challenge last year in May.
Oh, nice.
Is it the same or is the content going to be different?
No, it's different. It's updated. About 40% of it overlaps because they're fundamentals of PPC that don't change. But a lot of it is updated, more than half.
Well, before we get into questions, I will say this. There is that saying, you got to sharpen the saw, as Stephen Covey would say, or you could say sharpen the sword. Boom!
Boom, dude. Exactly.
Yes.
Keep that sword sharp.
Because if you're going to cut salad or cut PPC costs, you got to have a sharp sword. So, exactly. Oh, yeah. All right. So, Bhavana says, hi, Chris. Thanks for sharing the knowledge. Brian B says, yo, Chris, I'm in launch right now. 50 sales over the last 14 days and ran. All right. So we're getting into the questions here.
Let's get in it.
Vine viewers are giving me an average of 2.5 to 3 stars. Yikes. What can I do to bring that up?
That's
Tia,
tough.
brah.
Yeah,
thanks
it's
in advance.
Annoying with these Vine reviewers, right? When they give bad reviews, you're like, hey, man, you got the product for free. Like, I sometimes it's like, wow, these Vine reviewers really take themselves like very seriously. Like,
keyboard warriors.
Yeah, exactly. Keyboard warriors. So that it happens. It's weird how common it is to get negative reviews from Vine, even when there's no product quality issues. But the first thing to do, though, is to back up and actually look at the content of the reviews to make sure that there's not patterns emerging. And there's 2 things that you can do as a result of bad reviews to keep them from coming in the future. Because what you're going to end up doing is you're going to increase your review velocity to bury these reviews. But if you increase your review velocity and the same core issue is causing more negative reviews to come in, then you can't bury it. You're just going to bury it with more bad reviews that you then have to bury again. So the first thing you have to do is figure out if there's something that needs fixing. And then the second thing is bury it with more reviews by getting more sales. So the first thing to do is ensure that there's not a product quality issue. If it's a product defect where it's breaking or it's coming apart or it's not as advertised, then that's a more difficult problem to solve. And if you just launched and you're only 50 sales in, if I was in your shoes, then if there was a product quality issue, I would fix the issue in the product quality, order a new inventory, scrap the old listing, start with a brand new ASIN, and then ship it in and start again. Because you get a new honeymoon period, you're going to get a new fresh bank of reviews. You won't have to worry about fighting those old reviews. So that's if it actually has to do with product. But more likely, it has to do with something around the communication of the product. And this is a much easier problem to solve. So it could be that people aren't using it properly, or they don't realize that when you open it, you're at risk of cutting your finger on it because it's really sharp. And
it's a big sword.
Know that. Because it's a big sword that you're selling. I don't know if that's allowed to sell on Amazon. Maybe.
Right. Maybe.
Yeah. So whatever the issue is, whether it's a big sword or it's a heavy pot and they don't realize how heavy it is, you have to handle the issue in the listing itself so that people see that they know what to expect, because they'll leave negative reviews are left when there's a disconnect between the
Mm.
expectation from what they saw on the listing and what they experienced when they opened the product. So, the worst case scenario is that disconnect is because the product itself has defects or quality issues. And that's harder to fix. And, you just got to do what we just said before, start over, brand new ASIN. But if it's the communication issue, you can handle that just by editing the content of the listing. So you can add into the product images, like a how-to image or an instruction image, a step-by-step, 3 steps, to set up or whatever it is. You could add it into the A+ content. You could add it into the Q&A, and in the premium A+ content, there's a section just for Q&A, and especially for high-priced products, like people use that a lot. And then you can also handle it with the top voted reviews. Now, it's against Amazon's terms of service to manipulate reviews in any way. But all I'm going to say is, if any of the top reviews do address the challenge that people are having with the product, that's going to help reduce the potential negative reviews in the future. So that would be the path that I would take for you, Brian.
Awesome. Love that. All right. So Jaleel asks, have you ran STP campaigns in expanded match? If so, what have been your results?
Yeah. So that's great. So what Jaleel's referring to is step campaigns, which is self-targeted product placement campaigns, where you create a sponsored product campaign, and then you do ASIN targeting, and then you target only one ASIN, and that ASIN is the same ASIN that you're advertising. So that's a self-targeted product placement campaign. And what that does is it acts effectively as retargeting. There's no ASIN that it can possibly show on, because Amazon won't show the ad for your listing on the listing itself, because that's like Inception, right? Like if they clicked it, it would just reload the same page.
Right.
So,
keep going back.
Yeah, you just go into an infinite hole. So Amazon doesn't do that. It won't show the ad there. But what it does do is once people visit your listing, then when they click back off, then they start to see the ad, which is cool, because it's kind of like a retargeting hack. It's like a way to do retargeting in sponsored products. So this is a cool type of campaign that can get you really lean, profitable sales. It won't get you many sales. This is a low volume campaign. It doesn't produce many sales, but it produces profitable sales, like very lean sales. A lot of the time, not always, but we do this as a standard across like all of our products, because it just tends to provide very low ACoS, very lean sales, and just a few of them. So what Jaleel's asking is, can you do that, but with expanded targeting instead of exact targeting? Meaning you're targeting the ASIN, but when you target an ASIN, you have 2 boxes: exact or expanded. Exact means you're targeting just that ASIN. Expanded means you're giving Amazon leeway to target similar ASINs or complementary ASINs that it thinks would also perform just as well. And this is a great campaign setup. So the answer to Jaleel is yes, and it's an excellent campaign setup to try, because Amazon is actually pretty good at finding ASIN targets with this setup. Like there's multiple ways to allow Amazon to find ASIN targets, right? You could try category targeting. You could do an auto campaign with compliments. But this is the best way. This, in our experience, provides the best high performing targets. If you set up a campaign for a product, you target that same product's ASIN, and then you click expanded, it gives Amazon just enough leeway to find ASINs that are only like very close that would perform well. And then you can then take those ASINs and put them in exact match ASIN targeting campaigns. And it's a great way to mine new targets.
Got it. That's an interesting way to look at it. So basically it's kind of like the auto campaign, and then using those keywords to put into a manual campaign.
Yep, exactly.
Awesome.
Works the same way.
Love it. All right. So Brian, who asked the question before about Vine, says no product defect, just keyboard warriors, basically.
Yeah. So that sucks. So in that case, there's another sort of, I wouldn't call it a hack, but another strategy you can use, which is if there's any possibility to launch a variation of the product, you can launch a variation independent as its own ASIN, and then enroll that in Vine, and then combine them, and the reviews will combine. So you can get 30 reviews from the first one, 30 reviews from the second one. You combine them, and now you have 60 reviews on the parent ASIN. So if you were thinking about launching a variation, another color, another size, a bundle, something like that, that would be another strategy you could use. You could get a bunch of Vine reviews to that one. Hopefully those are better, combine them, and then it'll drown out those negative ones.
Yeah, that's one thing that kind of stinks is that, if you're not getting like a consistent, like, oh, they keep saying, the lid falls off or whatever the case is, and it's just, they're being harsh.
Nitpicky.
Yeah. As John mentioned, Vine reviewers think they're Siskel and Ebert of consumer
dude, exactly.
goods.
It's true. Yeah, it's unfortunately true. You think, come on, guys, come on.
Right, exactly. For those who are not familiar, Siskel and Ebert in the 80s and 90s were like big name movie. Yeah, 2 thumbs up, or thumbs up, a thumbs down, or 2 thumbs down. They were movie reviewers back in the day. All right. So just as a reminder, right now, if you get your question in, chances are we will get to it. If you wait until the end, which a lot of people do, because we'll be cutting off at 1 o'clock Eastern time, so it'll be the top of the hour, we will probably not be able to get to your question there towards the end. So make sure you get your question in now. Bhavana asks, my question, our daily sales slowly reach a plateau by evening, order frequency reduces, and final sales number hovers around a predictable amount while we are still in budget. That's a good confirming point there. How can we scale?
Yeah, so that is a good point, because my first thought is you might be running out of budget in the middle of the day, in which case you have to either lower bids or expand budget, but you have no problem with that. So you're still in budget, your budget's lasting all day, but your sales are reaching a plateau by evening. So one note on this is that depending on what you mean by evening, if it's late evening, conversion rates really drop off a cliff like after somewhere around 9 or 10 p.m. The conversion rates, they're like very low in the very early morning, and then they jump up, and then they have like this little plateau in the beginning of the day, and then they jump up in the middle of the day because people order things like while they're at work and like on their lunch break and stuff. And then it stays pretty high once people come back home from work, and then it drops way back down. So it could just be that your order frequency that you're noticing, and this is honestly an interesting pattern to notice for Bhavana. She's really looking deep at the data, which is awesome because you can get really great insights from that. It could just be that you're just getting less conversions and less searches for the product later in the evening. But if it's early evening, yeah, maybe there's something to that. Maybe there's some type of issue. But in general, an overarching philosophy is, rather than just looking at the times of day that you're getting the order, the most important metrics you want to focus on are how your click-through rate is changing over time, day by day and week by week, not hour by hour, because that's what really allows you to make changes that impact your listings. If you can constantly, John Doerr, who helped scale Google from $100 million company to a $100 billion company, he has a saying, what gets measured gets managed. And I run my company by this. We have KPIs for every division and overall KPIs for the whole company. And whatever we want to focus on to grow, we measure it. That's like the number one first thing that we do when we want to grow something is we figure out what we can measure. And then we measure it daily, weekly, monthly, quarterly. And in your case, the main metrics to measure are independent of all the PPC metrics, tacos, ACoS, and all of that. Things that allow you to affect the organic sales, because that's what the question is around. Organic sales is click-through rate and conversion rate. Those two things. It's funny. I just made a post about this on LinkedIn actually today. Everyone focuses on the conversion rate of their listing, but very infrequently do I see sellers really obsessively focus on their click-through rates. But if you think about it, click-through rate should be before the conversion rate in how you think about it. Because if they don't click onto the listing in the first place, they won't even get a chance to convert. So the first thing to think of is, how do I get all the clicks? Then the next thing to think of is, how do I get them to convert, right? Like YouTubers, YouTubers, I was talking about this yesterday with Norm. YouTubers will spend like a vast majority of their time on a new video figuring out what the thumbnail will look like and what title will get a click. And then making the video itself is almost like an afterthought to that, because people will never see the video if they don't figure out what thumbnail and title will get the click. So in our case on Amazon, that means the primary image and the title are the two biggest things you can do. The other things you can affect, sometimes directly, sometimes indirectly, are the price, the number of reviews, the review rating, and badges and coupons. So those are the 6 main things that you need to focus on. And that's what I would really focus on, is how's my conversion, my click-through rate changing day by day and week by week? And how's my conversion rate changing day by day and week by week? And then you could set targets and try to beat them and beat your best over time. That's what gives you an ever-evolving listing that's always responding to the market, always improving, always getting better and better. That's a process we run on our brands.
Yeah, and that's such a good point about looking at it for click-through rate as well as conversion rate, because if you look at Amazon experiments, if you look at the conversion rate they give you, it doesn't make sense for clicks to conversions or impressions to conversions. It's really from, or it's impression to conversion, not session to conversion. That's what I meant to say earlier. So they're looking at it as there's an inventory of only so many people are searching for garlic presses in a day. And so which garlic presses are going to give them more likelihood to get sales?
Yes.
That's what they care about. They're agnostic about your product. They don't care about your product. They don't care about you. I don't mean that to be Amazon is completely cold, but at the end of the day, the algorithm is looking for what is going to get the customer the best experience. And the best way to look at that is what's going to get sales on the other side, which is clicks, and then, converting those clicks. So
that's
good stuff.
Yeah, that was very well said, Kevin. I totally agree with that.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate that. All right. So Dauda De Silva says, what is the correct calculation formula in determining the bids for your search term keywords with respect to your desired ACoS at 23%, which he then follows up with, I've moved my top performing search term keyword of phrase match to its own exact match keyword about 2 days ago. However, they're not performing, have low impressions, few clicks, etc. What should I do?
Yeah, sometimes this happens. So, this actually happens pretty frequently to us, where if you try to hyper isolate your keywords, you can actually hurt the performance, the what was originally performing well. So I'm assuming what happened, Dauda, is you had a search term, a particular search term that you saw was performing in your phrase match campaign, and then you isolated it in its own exact match campaign and negated it in the phrase match campaign so that it's only getting traffic in one campaign. You can measure it properly. This is great for your ability to measure and have impact on the keyword, but occasionally, not all the time, but occasionally you'll isolate the keyword, and for whatever reason, it's not performing well when it's isolated, even though it performed great as part of a phrase match or a broad match campaign. And this happens. So a better practice to do that's safer is to just create an exact match campaign with the keyword, but don't negate it in the original campaign. Just let it run both. And it's fine that they're competing campaigns. It's okay. All we care about is the performance, right? So it's all right. And then over time in your exact match campaign, if you're seeing that the performance is not where you want it to be, you can ramp it down, you can adjust it, you can play with it, but at least you didn't hurt the performance of what was originally performing well. When it comes to setting the bids, what you should be more concerned about, because you gave us all this context, right? What you should be more concerned about, since you have this keyword that's performing well, but when you isolate it, it's not performing well, is how to adjust the bids. It doesn't really matter that much what bid you start with, because you're going to end up on the bid that you should be at no matter what. So what you should be focusing on is the bid itself and the placement adjusters. So you have the top of search placement adjuster, and now you also have rest of search and product placement adjuster. You can adjust them all now. So what you should be doing with this keyword You know it's an important keyword for you. You know it's relevant. You know it's high volume. You should be looking not just at the performance of the campaign. You should be looking at the performance of each placement. So it could be that, yeah, it's a high ACoS, but that's because most of your impressions are coming from top of search, and those are like super high ACoS clicks and super high CPC clicks. And you don't have to target top of search. That you do not have to target top of search. That's what you should do in this case is follow whatever placement is working best, whether it's rest of search, product placements, top of search, whatever's working best. Just follow that and adjust the bid adjusters in response to whatever is getting the purchases and whatever's getting a good cost per click. So you'll probably go in there, and when you click the placements view and you see in the campaign what placements are doing well, you're probably going to notice that one of them is eating up a lot of ad spend with a really high ACoS. And what you're going to do is what you could do is lower the base bid and then increase the bid adjusters for the other two placements. So for example, if I went in and I saw, okay, my top of search is like 120% ACoS. My rest of search is 25% ACoS. That's my target. And my product placements are also 25% ACoS, but they're not getting many impressions. They're not getting many purchases. So what you're going to do is lower the base bid and then increase the product placement adjuster, the placement adjustment, the bid adjuster, sorry, for the product pages and for rest of search. And that'll decrease the amount of sales coming from top of search and increase the amount of sales coming from rest of search and product placements.
Yeah, it's a good thing to test out, and especially now that they're giving us rest of search, because before it was just like, well, I never understood why they didn't give us the multiplier, but it took them 5 years to do it, but at least they did it.
Typical.
So, yeah, exactly. All right. Leon asks, good converting keyword in an auto when added to an exact without pausing an auto. Similar question before. I've found that the CPCs and the conversion rate are high in exact. So rather I launch in broad over exact.
Yeah. So this is really similar to the question that we just had, because this can happen when you isolate a keyword. Sometimes it doesn't perform as well. So I would do the same thing that we just talked about in the last question, is go into the actual placements and see which placement is performing badly and which placement is performing well, because a lot of times that's really what's happening. But here's another thing to try. This is something that we created a word for this inside Sophie because of how important it is that people don't really do it. We call it campaign chaining, where you take what's working in one campaign and you try it in a whole different setup. So like in this case, the very standard practice to do inside PPC on Amazon, right, is to use auto, broad, and phrase campaigns to find out exact search terms that work well. And then you create another sponsored product campaign that's exact match just for that search term. And that's what this question is about. But if you broaden your horizon a little bit more, you can use this data of this search term that you found is performing well in a lot of other ways. So for example, maybe if I isolate this term in a sponsored product campaign, it's not doing so well. And again, I would definitely look at the placements and see if you could make it do well. There probably is some knobs that you could adjust there. But what if I created, since I know this is performing well in auto, what if I created a sponsored brand campaign that was a sponsored brand video ad targeting just that keyword, because I know it performs great. And I use a video asset that speaks directly to whatever that buyer intent is of that keyword. So if it's a problem-based keyword, for example, itchy skin or something, I'm going to start out my video, with solving that problem. If it's a solution-based keyword, in that case, this case, it would be skin cream. I would show it going on, because it's related directly to that buyer intent. So there are other ways to take the success data that you get out of these research or discovery campaigns like auto, broad, phrase, and to use them properly. And that was one example. But another thing you can do, since you know that this keyword is performing well, is if you really want to juice it, this is a good opportunity for you to take that keyword in the title and bump it up closer to the title. If it's not in the title at all, put it in the title. If it's already in the title, move it closer to the beginning of the title. And you can even, if it's a high volume and important and relevant enough keyword, you can even go so far as to see if there's a way that you could change the main image to make people who are searching this keyword more likely to click the image. So don't just stop at isolating the keyword in a sponsored product exact match campaign. When you find a keyword that works, you should go ham on it. If it's high enough volume and it's high enough relevance and it's actually an important keyword, go hard. Look at it from every perspective, because you just found a little vein. You need to widen that and just ride it all out, all the way out.
Good stuff. All right. So Jaleel asks, do you see STP campaigns in expanded do better than auto complements or substitute for ASIN harvesting? And do the ASINs end up converting better?
Yeah, we find that expanded ASIN targeting does a better job at mining new ASIN targets than auto campaigns. We'll still run both, and that's not always true. It's not always the case, but in general, that's what we found, that Amazon seems to do a good job finding new targets when you use expanded ASIN targeting, especially if you use expanded ASIN targeting your own ASIN, the same ASIN that you're advertising. But you can run out of targets in that way. You start there, and then you can add more ASINs in once you find the ones that are performing well, because that gives Amazon more fodder for like, okay, find more ASINs like this, find more ASINs like this.
Got it. And are you putting those additional ASINs into that same original campaign?
Yeah, once it like runs its course, you could just put them right back in the same campaign.
Okay, good.
Yeah, but you just give it enough time to like find the ASINs that are performing well from the original seed, which is just the ASIN itself, the same ASIN.
Sure. That's interesting. All right. Brian B says, thanks for the answer. One more question for the greatest of all time, the GOAT.
Jeez, you're making me blush over here. My God.
I know. It's like really Chris fan club today here.
Seriously, dude. I'm glad that my enemies didn't show up. Maybe they will later.
I doubt that. All right. So there you go. You got the storage.
Yeah, just whip it out.
All right. So I have an older product of that I'm considering not reordering, BSR of around 300,000, but 472 4.6 star reviews. Seems like a waste to kill the listing.
Okay. So it's an interesting question why you'd be considering not reordering it. I'm assuming that the average daily number of orders is quite low, and it's just making it not worth it. So, but if you have nearly 500 4.6 star reviews, I mean, you're only a couple points away from having like the full 5 stars icon, which is a huge click-through rate boost. So yeah, it would be a shame. So what I would do is this: if you have low sales volume daily on this product, do a few experiments to see if you could turn some knobs and dials to get it going better. Like, for example, so the two benchmarks to get is, what is my click-through rate and what is my conversion rate, and how does that compare to benchmark? So in Product Opportunity Explorer and Brand Analytics, you can get benchmarks actually for both conversion rate and click-through rate, but we just don't trust the click-through rate data because it doesn't tend to jive with, our data.
Reality.
So we don't trust it that much. Even the conversion rate data you can use as a general benchmark, but you don't want to trust it too much. You just use it as a general benchmark. You can get the conversion rate data from Product Opportunity Explorer and Brand Analytics, and then see, are you far off from that? Are you far off from the niche average conversion rate? If so, then you're in a pretty good position to do something about it, because I mean, a lot of sellers are in a way worse position than this, right? They have like a 3.9 star rating and hundreds of reviews, which is very difficult to turn around for you, because you already have the fundamentals, hundreds of reviews, greater than 4.5 star rating. It's possible that you can make a few tweaks and have a significant impact on the performance of this. So it may be that there's content things that you could split test. I would make sure that you have brand story loaded, premium A+ content loaded, every main type of secondary image, a competitor comparison, a features graphic, a benefits graphic, an X factor graphic that zooms in, a lifestyle shot, in-use shots, and then go into your A+ content and make sure that you're telling the story of the brand itself. check the top voted reviews too, because even though you're 4.6 stars, it's possible that you have some critical reviews that are showing on the front of the listing that are demolishing the conversion rate, even though it has a good star rating, because most shoppers only look at those top voted reviews that show up on the front of the listing. So, and again, I would never recommend violating Amazon's terms of service in any way, but those top voted reviews come from a mix of what reviews were most recent and what reviews got the most helpful votes and what reviews were most detailed and in depth. So do with that knowledge what you will. And so, yeah, if you check all of that stuff, that I kind of just ran through a diagnostic checklist of the entire, listing conversion. If you go through all those checks and you think, wow, there's actually a lot that could be improved, I wouldn't scrap it. I would try to save this because it's obviously a product that's providing a good customer experience and you've got the star rating. So that's one of the hardest things to get. Then do the same diagnostic checklist with the thumbnail. Look at the primary image, look at all the other primary images for the page one competitors and see, be honest with yourself. I'll tell you a little story actually, real quick, that's very related to this. We have a toy product and it's it's a toy product that's like construction. You put these arms together and stuff. And this toy is a glow in the dark toy. And so we had the primary image of the toy set up really, really nicely, white background, compliant, looked good. It was a good picture. And our click-through rate was, I think it was 0.2%. Then we looked at the page one competitors and we came up with a hypothesis based on what some of the other competitors were doing, that to show really that it's glow in the dark, we could make it super bright, like uranium neon. And this was an idea that came actually from one of my senior strategists named Billy. So we came up with that hypothesis, right? Changed the primary image, doubled the click-through rate. It went from 0.2 to 0.4, doubled. So for people that don't even realize how big of a difference that is, it's 0.2% difference, big deal. Going from 0.2 to 0.4 in your click-through rate means that you just doubled the amount of traffic going to your listing. That's what that means. It means for every day, like you said, Kevin, there's a certain number of impressions, and that's just, it is what it is. There's only going to be that amount. You can't create more impressions. The demand is what it is. And for all of those impressions to our thumbnail, we're now getting 2 times as many clicks, which means our sessions now doubled. We are getting 2 times as many sessions to our listing without running any ads, without doing any additional external traffic, not doing anything. We just doubled the traffic to our listing permanently into the future. That's how and this actually just happened last week. That's nice. How powerful this is, doing an audit of your click-through rate. So for Brian, I would go so deep on researching at what everyone is doing on page one and cross-reference what they're doing with their primary image. Do they have badges? What's their pricing at? What is their review rating at? Do they have coupons enabled? And especially that primary image, that title, what are they doing with that? And see if you could pull the nose up on this thing.
Love it, because it comes down to, give it the best shot and, see if you can salvage it. And at the end of the day too, are you having to order 1,000 units at a time or can you order 50? So if, you also have to look at it as dollars in, dollars out. Sometimes it's not about the glamorous, everybody likes to share oh, this product did 100 sales a day. That doesn't necessarily need. Yeah, exactly. How much profit is it contributing to profit, or is it just a drain on your cash flow and your profitability? And so that's another way to look at it. But I would do all those things Chris just said. So you can always just back this tape up, so to speak, and then watch it. And YouTube, if you go into the description of the video, will give transcripts once the replay is available. So you can copy all of that, put that into Chat GPT and say, please make me a checklist based off of this. So the GOAT himself just gave you a checklist. All right. So Yan Chen says, is 2024 Amazon FBA still profitable? At first, I thought a lot of seller quit because they're not selling much. Now it feels like a lot of sellers might quit due to no more cash flow. Out of cash, force us to stop chasing our FBA dreams.
Well, I'll say this. I mean, we're running hundreds of brands simultaneously because our model is we partner with brands to take over their PPC and operate them. And one of the metrics that we're measuring is profit. So I can tell you with 100% certainty that yes, FBA can be run profitably. I'll say that it's just a very different game now. It really is a whole different ball game. It's a different landscape. It's a different competitive landscape, and the sophistication with which you need to pay attention to every element of the business has increased like multitudes.
Yes.
So when I started my first brand in 2015, and through a mix of timing and luck, I grew that to multi 7 figures inside a year. And my first launch strategy was I made like 250 discount codes that brought the product price down to free. And then I used a launch site to like move 250 units in a single day, which ranked me number 1 for my primary keyword immediately. And I had actually a really good product that I designed using AutoCAD myself because I was doing engineering prior to launching my first brand, and so I stuck that ranking. So, dude, I mean, those days are long gone, right? I mean, we're many phases and degrees removed from that now. The strategies now, you have to pay so much more attention to every element of the business. That being said, the overall size of the market and the overall demand of the market was many times smaller in 2015. So there's many times more demand and actual dollars running through Amazon now than there were back then. So a big niche, the biggest niche you could think of, say vitamin D or omega-3, something that would get 1 million searches a month. The size of that market back in 2015, that's equivalent to the size of a sub niche of a sub niche today, because the whole market has grown so much since then. So it definitely is possible. And what I would do if I was in your case and you're really worried about cash flow and not sure about the opportunity in general, is you can almost guarantee yourself a win. Oh, look at this graph. See, there you go. Oh, I gotta like, what are the years markings on that? Look at that. 2015. It looks like about 1/5 or a sixth of the size of the market today.
Yeah. So you and I both started around the same time, 2015, 2016 time period. Like we're talking about it. Yeah. It's about 1/5. If you go from 2015 to 2023, it's more than 5x.
Yeah. I love that you pulled this up, Kevin. This is awesome. Yeah. So the market is so much bigger, meaning there's so many more dollars flowing through, so many more buyers. Obviously, you need more sellers to serve those buyers, right? So it definitely is possible. But what I would do in your case, if you're really, concerned, is funnel that, turn that from anxiety into excitement by focusing on a niche that that you could have a significant impact on from a design perspective. So if you niche down enough, you can really just hyper commit to a very specific customer avatar, or a very specific use case or a search term that you just know that you would dominate. If you're doing your keyword research, and you should be doing keyword research prior to the product development, that should be part of the product development, is the keyword research. It should come first. So when you're doing your keyword research and your market analysis, and you find that there's for example, maybe I wanted to sell like some kind of lip balm, and I know it's consumable, so it has a long, lifetime value, and I know I could get into that. Well, if I'm doing my keyword research and I find that there's a significant amount of people searching for lip balm for rock climbers, like that's like a real specific niche, right? Like rock climbers are buying lip balm for some reason. Their lips get dry up on the rocks. Well, you could dive way into that and just totally commit to that. And you can nearly guarantee, if you do really good product development, that if you completely tailor your product just to that sub niche of a sub niche, that you're gonna dominate it, because the other ones are just multi-purpose lip balms that could sell to anybody, right?
Right. Another chapstick.
Yeah, exactly. So that's just an example, but that plus products that have a significant amount of design variation. So if you look at page 1 and you see all the products look exactly the same, and there's a reason for it because it's a very simple product where people don't care about the design and it's very commoditized. An example of this would be like storage containers for food. Like moms go through these like hotcakes. Like they're just using them every day and they get thrown out. They just want cheap ones. That might not be a good space to go into. I wouldn't sell plastic bags or plastic containers. But if you go into a space where the design matters, like this mug, this is my favorite mug. I love it. It's got like mountains engraved on it.
Oh, cool.
One of my closest friends actually gave me this. This is a design based product. That means that if there's a high degree of variation in the design, that means there's space for you to come in with a unique design that gets a certain type of person that likes a certain type of thing. Like I'm outdoorsy. I like to have mountains on my mug, and the sea. It's cool. So that leaves you space and you can dominate your little section that you carve out. So yeah, that would be my general advice.
Love that. All right. So we have time for probably 2-ish more questions. We'll see. How long to go with PPC when come generically traffic, which I think means organic sales?
Oh, like how long does it take for PPC to get you organic sales? Yeah. So I'm going to interpret this and you can type in the question in a different way if I'm interpreting this wrong, Saida. But it sounds like you're saying like, how long will it take for PPC to generate organic traffic? And so we consider the launch period usually between 30 and 90 days. And we consider the launch period complete once we get to the point where our tacos is no longer exceeding the margin of the product. Tacos being your advertising spend divided by your overall sales. So that lets me know what percentage of my total revenue am I spending on advertising. If that number is less than my margin, I'm not losing money. If it's equal to my margin, I'm breaking even because I'm spending my entire margin on ads. So know your product margin because that will allow you to know what you can spend and how long you can lose money based on whatever budget you have and whatever savings you have to like put into this product launch. So once the product has gotten to that point where there's this inflection point and your tacos is now lower than your margin, you know that you're no longer losing money with every sale and your launch is quote unquote complete. What we do is we move that product into what we call the expansion phase, where we know that we're sustainable. We know we're not losing money on the product. And then we can kind of play around with how much do we want to actually drive profits for this product and how much do we want to spend those profits on additional ranking spots. So that period to get to that point of margin exceeding tacos, it's usually between 30 and 90 days. If it's longer than that, it's probably because you're in a consumables market where brands are more flexible or more willing to lose money for a longer period of time. Because if you sell like a supplement or anything that gets used up, brands that have been in the space for a while, they already know what their lifetime value is. They already have the calculation done because they've been selling for a while. They know on average over the course of 2 years, a new to brand customer is going to buy 7 times. And if they know that, they're going to be willing to spend a lot more to get that first sale, more than 100% of the revenue from the first sale. They might spend 150%. They might spend 200% because they're willing to wait until the second or third or fourth sale for it to pay off because they know there's another 6th and 7th sale after that. So consumables brands, it usually has a longer launch span, but for a non-consumables brand, you should be ranking in that first month. You should start ranking for some keywords, and especially within the first 3 months, you really should have some ranking spots.
Yes, good stuff. All right, so next up, Ultima Ratio Regum. Hopefully, I said that correct. In launching products, do you limit the search volume of the keywords targeted? Our budget is pretty good, which is a relative term, but the subcategory is very competitive. I'm wondering about targeting 25K search volume. So how high up funnel should you go? So that's probably the question.
Yeah. Well, the only way to really know this is to test it, right?
Mm-hmm.
15K is really not that much. That's a good amount. I mean, if you're ranking for a 15K search term, that's great. But there are search terms that get 300K searches a month. There are
Mm-hmm.
search terms that get 700K searches a month. So, yeah, 15K that's a good amount of volume. If you're ranking for that, you're going to be getting somewhere on the order of 20 to 40 sales a day, at least, maybe more. It's possible, if combined with the other keywords that you're ranking for. So it's a solid term. If it's relevant enough to the product, then I would definitely go for it. But if it's broad and your product is more specific and there are other terms that are in the 5K range or 2K range or 6K range, somewhere in the single digits, mid single digits, I would go after those first because you're more likely to get profitable lean sales from those. But what happens is there's like a rising tides raises all ships effect, where if you're getting sales velocity, you're going to end up increasing your ranking across the board. Like we always see this, where when we do a new product launch, we'll focus on the keywords that are converting the best. We're just always looking at the PPC data, seeing which keywords are performing the best, and then we focus on ranking just for those ones. But when we do that, the other keywords start to rank too, even though we're not really targeting them. So even if you try out this 15K search term and it's not converting super well, or it's just too expensive for you to try to continue to drive traffic to, it doesn't mean you're giving up on it. You can just try targeting some other higher relevance, lower volume search terms and allow the rising tides raises all ships effect to affect that search term. And you might end up ranking for it anyway.
Which would be pretty awesome.
Yeah.
All right. So this might be our last question of the day. I'm new and do not have the cash flow yet to hire a big firm to optimize my listings. What is your advice to either how can I learn to do that myself, or are there companies that can help small sellers?
Yeah. So the number one thing that you want to do is open up a Google Doc, go to Amazon.com, search your major keyword, whatever the primary keyword is. For me, this would be ceramic coffee mug, right?
Mm-hmm.
Go through page 1 and find use a Chrome extension like Helium 10 to find out who the top sellers are. Go through, and also the medium sellers too. Sometimes the top sellers are just resting on their laurels and they don't have the best content. But go through each listing and go through their content and figure out why the content is what it is. So you should be drawing principles from, okay, a lot of people seem to be showing this coffee mug in an office setting. Probably means that a lot of people are using the coffee mug in their office. So that's a good indicator that you're going to want a lot of your content to be in an office setting. So you're going to go through, you're going to come up with hypotheses based on what the top sellers are doing, and then try to use those principles to come up with your own thesis on what content will work best on your listing and how you can follow the principles that are working for other sellers, but amp it up and give it your own spice, your own juice. Come up with your own hypotheses about like, okay, how can I make this even better? And then you just got to get scrappy. If you're very low budget and you're low on cash flow, then, I mean, you have to do everything as cheap as you possibly can, right? There's nothing wrong with using stock imagery. Stock imagery can work really, really great. And you can use stock imagery, especially if you have a good Photoshop artist, which you could try to find on a platform like Upwork or Fiverr and just pay hourly for. You can very elegantly Photoshop your product images into stock photos and get great lifestyle shots from that. So this isn't always possible, but in your case, you're on a shoestring budget. So that's what you're going to have to do. So you try to save money anywhere you can, do your own research, come up with your own hypotheses by going really, really thorough, and then get your designs done any way you possibly can.
Awesome. Love it. All right. So another thing he could do, and this is a good way to wrap up the show here, is he could join the PPC challenge that Chris is hosting next month in 26 days, it looks like, if my math serves me correctly.
Boy.
I'm cheating.
That's
I'm
coming up.
looking at
Coming up.
So if you're interested in joining Chris's PPC challenge, you can go to myamazonguy.com/challenge. That will forward you to a page, which I should probably share on the screen here just so people can see what we're looking at. So basically, what you probably can't see right now, if you weren't here earlier, Chris was showing he has a sword right behind him. So if you like seeing Chris with a sword, you can also see him with a breastplate of armor and shoulder, whatever you would call that. Basically, he's got his knight armor and he's got sword in hand right now, but you can watch the video with his armor on where he's talking about how you can arm yourself, so to speak, with the knowledge you need for more profitable PPC campaigns. So you can head over to myamazonguy.com/challenge to check out Chris's challenge. So do you mind telling folks a little bit more about that in your words?
Yeah, totally. So this is 5 days. It's a 5-day intensive, and our promise is no matter where you're at in the business, if you come in and you really commit to showing up every day for the 5 days, you'll come out the other side fully equipped to use PPC to accomplish your goals in your brand. You'll know exactly what to do because we're giving you a framework based that applies to brands at every stage. We have 0 to 10K a month, 10K to 50K a month, 50K to 200K a month, 200K to 500K a month, 500K to $1 million a month. So we cover the whole gambit of how to use PPC to accomplish your goals in a brand. And we, by the way, we run brands at all those scales. So all this knowledge comes directly from me and my team who do this only. This is all we do, is run Amazon PPC on brands and use PPC to grow brands and help them hit their goals. So every day you show up live with me. You do have to commit to showing up live. Otherwise we have to give your seat to somebody who can, because we only have 360 seats. We have a set number of mentors who mentor you in private chats, small group private chats, so that everybody has a chance to actually get their challenges solved and their issues solved. That's why this is the type of value that you get from joining a $10,000 mastermind, but it's only 5 days and it's only $47. So yeah, for those 5 days, you get mentorship in the chat every day. You learn from me the actual frameworks, then you get assignments for how to implement it into your brand, and you get handouts that you can then reference afterwards to help you understand how to do it. We map everything out in a very visual way, in a simple way to make it very easy to understand everything. Everything you can affect with PPC, the targeting, the bidding, the creative, the bid strategy, everything that you can affect, we map it out simply in one view so that you can see it all in one single view. So yeah, in addition to that, each day we have office hours where you can show up with your challenge and you can actually come on deck and talk live with us about your challenge and get it solved. So yeah, I would love for you guys to come. For any of you guys that are looking to master PPC or use PPC as a tool to grow your brand, this is where you want to be. You want to be here. It starts April 22nd. I'll have my sword. I'll be right here in my studio with my sword. And any of you warriors that are down for that, please do join. I'd love to see you there.
Awesome. Just head on over to myamazonguy.com/challenge. You'll be forwarded to that page. So with that, I just want to say, Chris, thank you for sharing your knowledge, dropping some bombs. Today we had a great discussion. And for those folks who we didn't get to, join us for another PPC AMA coming up here. If you're not subscribed to the My Amazon Guy YouTube channel, so that way you can get notified, ring that notification bell or whatever they say these days, so that you can find out when we have another guest expert on, and make sure you check out Chris's PPC challenge. So thank you, everybody. And thank you, Chris.
Thank you, Kevin. This is always so fun to do with you. Thanks for hosting. Thanks everybody for showing up.